What's going on, y'all? I told you guys I would do some videos, put some stuff out about this. So this video you guys are about to see is actually on Bob Lazar. Bob Lazar was like a nuclear physicist or scientist from the 1980s. He had did several things, but I'll go into more in depth on him in another video and stuff. But Bob Lazar is a person who stated that he worked at Area 51, in particular a section called S4 at Area 51. And when he was brought into here, I think he worked here about 8 months to about a year. I think it was about 8 or 9 months back in 1989. He was brought in to reverse engineer what he calls the sport model. And the sport model, as you guys see there, is kind of your typical shaped UFO that a lot of people say they seen or claim they seen. And he was brought in to see if he could reverse engineer this particular craft with Earth materials, which is amazing in itself, and I'll get into videos about that a little bit later on. But when he was brought in to do this, he has an amazing story, guys, and it has not changed over the years. I mean, I've been listening to him since 1989 when he came out with this, and bam. But in this video, you guys are going to see where they took a particular object from the craft, they hooked it up to one of their reactors or amplifiers, and they actually pointed it at a candle. And what happened from this point is amazing. But you guys will hear all this in the video because it gets real technical and stuff, and I don't want to mess everything up with that. But listen to this and put your comments down below, because I agree with Bob Lazar. I don't really care too much about extraterrestrial stuff, all that. What I care about is the technology, and that is kind of being suppressed from the public. But this is one of many videos that I'll start putting out, and other information stuff I'll do from this point going forward. But you guys enjoy this, and put your comments down below, and stay tuned for more videos.
Alone is something amazing. Look, that can change everything we know today. Just having a machine to produce artificial gravity. Because look at what that does. We know gravity, space, and time are all tied together. There are your shields, like on Star Trek, that deflect micrometeorites. There is your protection from radiation without heavy shielding. There is something that, with an intense enough focused field, you can actually bend space, and there is something that can actually alter the flow of time. I mean, that's the missing piece of pie.
Didn't they actually freeze
a candle?
A flame for
yeah,
you?
now that's when it was connected to the gravity amplifiers where they could focus it, and
They froze a candle?
Yeah, they had a candle lit to set it up for you. Again, there's a large, in the craft itself, there are 3 long pipes. I'd say, well, I don't know about, what's that, 3-4 feet in diameter, maybe 5 feet long. Anyway, they dangle the 3 of them at the bottom of the craft. These produce gravitational waves, and they can focus them to a point or spread them apart.
Those are what you call the wave guides?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. They're part of the power source control mechanism and the wave. Well, the wave guide is what I actually call the interlink between them, but that's the gravitational engine. They had one of those devices out along with the subsystem that connects it. So they can produce the power from the reactor, it runs the gravity amplifier, and they can focus and change the gravity beam that comes out of it. They took, speaking of Barry, took a candle, put it close to the mouth of it, lit it, a normal flickering candle flame, and then activated the reactor. The gravity wave came out as expected, and the candle flame remained luminous and stopped moving. And
Which defies physics.
yeah, because look, if it's going to
photons-
freeze it, the photon should stop being emitted. If it's going to change the characteristics, look, how can the combustion continue to take place without the convection inside the flame? Because actually, the reason a flame is elongated is not really because of heat, it's because of gravity. Because gravity pulls down, and convection moves flames upward. It's why in a zero gravity environment, flame is a ball. Obviously, there's nothing to pull things around. But anyway, if you negate the gravity around it, why is it still pointy? How can it still be making light? And why doesn't it move? Well, I mean, from what Barry said, it's not just gravity, but it's also time locked. You've distorted
the frame of time.
Yeah, they essentially froze a piece of time there, and what do you say? I mean, it's empirical evidence. You're looking at it. It's not
interesting that
a.
you can see it.
It doesn't make sense that you could see it. And look, the stuff I saw there was the most unbelievable, literally, because it defied what we knew as physics. And at least I thought it did. And maybe what we knew was a little incorrect and just needed viewing from a different angle. They finally did synthesize element 115 that had the properties that I stated. But
it wasn't stable.
Yeah, it wasn't stable. Now, each element has isotopes. For instance, let's talk about hydrogen. We're all familiar with hydrogen. Hydrogen has 3 isotopes. They're all hydrogen. There's hydrogen, protium, be the technical name, deuterium, and tritium. Well, tritium is a radioactive hydrogen. Deuterium is another stable isotope of hydrogen, and regular protium, ordinary hydrogen, is the hydrogen we all know. They're all hydrogen. They have different amounts of neutrons in them. They all have 1 proton, which makes them hydrogen. Now, this is true for all elements. You can have the amount of protons in them determines what element it is. So element 115 has 115 protons in it. It's element 115. Now, depending on the number of neutrons it has, it will still be element 115, but it can be any number of isotopes of it. 115 undoubtedly has, many isotopes of it. We've synthesized 115. We made 1 isotope. We have a radioactive one. Now they just need to continue on working with it. I mean, they made just a few atoms, but we'll see what other isotopes they come up with. One of them or more is going to be stable, and it will have the exact properties that I said.
Or could we make it? Or does it have to be natural? As you speculated about that.
Well,
before.
it's natural. It'd be difficult to find it. I do not think you can make that synthetically. It's just, it takes too much time. I mean, to make, an ounce of it or even a gram would take a tremendous amount of time because not all the interactions are successful. I mean, you can bang particles together all day long and one may get stuck and then you've got an atom, and how do you contain, this single atom?
So how do we get 500 pounds of it? Where'd that come from?
Well, it had to either be synthesized by the extraterrestrials that bought it in the first place, or, maybe there was a location where they came from where, look, this was a naturally occurring material. We know that all the material in the universe, essentially all the atoms of all elements, came from hydrogen. I mean, all you really need is just atoms of hydrogen to make anything. Once they start collecting together large quantities of them, gravity just begins to push them together under their own weight. As long as you have enough hydrogen, that'll continue until they finally crush down and ignite and produce a fusion reaction. And that starts a star. Once the star is burning, it begins to produce helium by fusing. So now you have another new element. Well, this continues on until the star burns out, begins to collapse, and when large enough stars finally do, they crush down, produce supernovas, and then produce a whole host of every element on the periodic chart, far beyond what the numbers we're used to, beyond 115. And maybe some of these, that's where all the gold, all the uranium, every element you have ever come from, including every cell in your body, has come from supernovas. That's the factory that makes elements. So if there was a location somewhere else that had bigger stars, multiple stars, that burped out more heavy elements than our local system did, maybe this is common, and you can find stable 115 like we mine for gold on our planets or uranium. It just depends. If they were lucky enough to have exotic materials like that, I find that easier to believe than somebody built a machine to manufacture such a difficult material.
So it's sort of like a Rorschach test. Aha, they made 115. He was right. It really does exist. Somebody who doesn't want to believe it says 115 doesn't behave anything like Bob Lazar said. It's sitting around in a pile of 500 pounds or something, right? I mean, it's sort of like that.
What is the...
Right. You have to, you just have to start accumulating, whether you believe it or not, and I personally, again, I prefer you don't believe it. Just begin accumulating the facts that you can verify. and really be careful.
But that drives them crazy. I mean,
That's
you need
fine.
to answer this. Now, I need an answer. How many times do you get that in a week still after all this
Oh,
time?
I get. There isn't a day I don't get emails, and I try and get this across to them. Look, I don't even want to talk about it anymore. Well, I don't believe the story. Great, pass it around. I really don't want you to, because it makes life difficult for me. I'm trying to do serious research. I've got contract with governments and other companies for R&D work, and aside from other scientific interests, and I want this divorced. Look, if I went and did everything I can to prove my story and reached a tipping point where people like Stanton Friedman and people along those lines said, you know what, this is beginning to look factual. Do you know how that would annihilate me? That would destroy my business. It would make it impossible for me to operate. And, I'd have a continuous flow of questions, annoying people, I'm sure offers to do things that I am not the least bit interested in.
Which is how it was for years.
Yeah.
It was for years,
Yeah.
right?
Look, I could have jumped on all that stuff. I could have, at Area 51 sports drinks, and I could have been giving, look how many lectures. At one point I had, what's that talk show host that, what's the guy's name?
Which one?
Geraldo,
Suspenders.
Montel,
Old guy, suspenders.
Larry King.
Larry King. Yeah, I had an open invitation at one time for that show to come on. As the, Geraldo, everybody. I turned down everything.
Montel Williams.
I blew off movie scripts. I blew off all kinds of stuff because they couldn't stick to facts.
Is there a part of you, though, that there's got to be part of you somewhere in there, even though it would be counterproductive, there's got to be part of you that wishes, God damn it, I know what happened, it's true.
No, look, I know what happened is true. There's no doubt, period. There's no delusion, and there are some things I can say that will bolster the case, and I'm not going to. It's going to stay that way. I do regret, at this point, bringing anything forward. Look, at the time, I'm in my early 20s. I went, you know what? This is a crime against the American people. This is just BS, and everybody deserves to know what's going on. And 25 years goes by, you get a little older, and your priorities change. And, what they told me is, this is a security matter, and really, what's the public going to do without this? You know how reactionary they are? There's a bunch of different reasons this is being kept quiet. Nothing that they bother telling me, but the bottom line is they're right. The bulk of the people are complete morons. And I'm sorry, maybe they are right. And this really should just be information that's handled out on a...
All right, so there you guys have it. The video does kind of end there, but I have a lot more information and footage on stuff like this, on the technology behind it. That's what I'm more fascinated by than anything else. So I'll have stuff coming up in the coming weeks, months, and years coming out. Maybe every week, every other week, once a month, once every 6 months. But you guys stay tuned for that. Don't forget to subscribe and put your comments down below.